కూడా ఈ మైన్స్ లో చాలా లోపాలు జరుగుతున్నాయి మా దగ్గర.
ఓకే సార్.
కృష్ణారెడ్డి రెడ్డి గారు
ఓకే సార్.
కూడా ఈ విషయంలో హ్యూమన్ రైట్స్ లో అట్లా కూడా కేసు వేసినాం
సార్.
మా జిల్లాలో 4 మనుషులు వాళ్ళు తీసిన పొంతలో బట్టి చనిపోయారు
సార్.
వాళ్ళకి 2 లక్షల రూపాయలు కట్టి కంపెన్సేషన్ ఇచ్చి చేశారు.
సార్.
అది సరిపోదు, అది అసలు ప్రభుత్వం తప్పు వల్ల జరిగింది. 1 కోటి రూపాయలు
అన్న లైవ్ అన్న యూట్యూబ్ అండ్ ఫేస్బుక్ లైవ్.
రైట్, స్టార్ట్. Subba.
Namaskar, good evening, welcome to all the participants and viewers. Today is the second episode on climate change. We are happy to inform you that Hyderabad Democracy Forum has planned around 20 episodes on climate change before the commencement and also during the COP26 deliberations. In this, we are focusing to encourage and promote the young research students and students to make presentations. This helps them to study, understand the local to global dynamics on climate change. And we are also glad to inform you that the last students of Symbiosis College has come forward. And today the topic is Paris Agreement. Because Paris Agreement is the landmark agreement. From there, the countdown starts. And we should know, all the citizens of the country and the world should know what is that each country is progressing in achieving the set or committed goals of Paris Agreement. This is a big task, and the disasters are increasing day by day. The recent floods in Germany and in New York and also parts of India will again warning us to look into our commitments. I welcome today Kartikya Singh, who is a second-year student of Law College, Symbiosis University. And Kartikya he hails from Jammu, and very enthusiastic volunteer. And I wish all the good luck. Kartikya, I invite you. The platform is yours.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Namaskar and welcome to all the audiences. And thank you to Subba Rao sir and Professor Purushotham Reddy sir for having. Now, I'd like to share my screen. Without further ado, I'd like to share my screen and present on the topic of Paris Agreement, which would be discussed today. Yeah,
you are the host. You
yes,
can
sir.
access it. Okay.
Right. Yes. Sir, is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. So my name is Kartikya and I'm from Jammu, a second-year law student at Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad. And climate change is one of the areas that keenly interests me, since we at India are also facing this issue, and the issue is very, very relevant in the times we live in. Also talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected us all. And it is one of the reasons. It was because the humans tried to play with nature. That is why nature also, in its revenge of fury, brought to us COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. So Paris Agreement was basically a combined ambitious effort to tackle climate change. It was adopted in 2015. It was a global response to climate change with 196 countries as its signatories. It basically focuses on the mitigation plans and wants to increase the forest area to capture the greenhouse gases. Also, the Paris Agreement clearly mainly focuses on reducing the global temperatures to 2 degrees Celsius or preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which have been ravaging very frequently. As per the recent reports also, we the recent report by UNFCCC, according to it, if the Paris Agreement wouldn't have been signed and if the Paris Agreement wouldn't have been actually recommended, the climate change would have been even more disastrous and the temperatures would have touched 3 degrees Celsius. Before going further ahead, I request all the people and all the passengers are requested to fasten their seatbelts. Please keep your window blinds open. The airline regrets to inform you that there are no emergency exits in this flight. Hope you have a memorable experience with PHG Airlines, Zoom. Before going ahead, I'll be showing some video. This is by UNFCCC and it details about what is the Paris Agreement.
What?
Sir, is it audible and visible?
Yes, sir.
What is the Paris Agreement? The Paris Agreement is a legally binding international treaty on climate change to limit global
Video is
warming
not
to well below 2,
visible.
preferably.
So video is not visible.
Yeah.
So I'll have to share properly there.
Or else you can complete the presentation and then go to the video.
Right, sir. Right, so I'll do that. So the review of Paris Agreement happens after every 5 years, starting from 2020. The 2020 meeting was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know, since countries could not delegate and meet, and the focus was majorly on the COVID-19 pandemic. It is a legally binding international treaty. So Paris Agreement is a legally binding international treaty, which means any or every country which violates the treaty can be held legally liable. Also, maintaining the global temperatures well below 2 degrees Celsius or below, preferably below 1.5 degrees Celsius as per the Paris Agreement. The agreement focuses on mitigation rather than the processes, which was basically the focus of the Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol majorly focused on the processes rather than the mitigation plans, whereas the Paris Agreement focuses on the mitigation. The agreement was adopted as a decision by COP or Conference of Parties to the UNFCCC. So UNFCCC, as we all know, is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The Conference of Parties deliberated, and after the Kyoto Protocol was signed, they came to a conclusion in the years succeeding 2012 that they needed a better and a more robust mechanism, which was found in the Paris Agreement. So now we look at the working of the Paris Agreement. The agreement requires all the signatory states to form their own NDCs, or commonly referred to as the nationally determined contributions. So whatever contribution a state or a nation or a party can bring in is known as the nationally determined contributions, which is what the Paris Agreement focuses on. So the NDCs focus on greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide reductions, pollution, etc. The principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities is recognized in the agreement. As was recognized by the Kyoto Protocol in 1992, the concept of common but differentiated responsibilities, which means even though there might be different states, they have a common responsibility, but in a different manner, since the developed countries have to take a step further than the developing nations. But that does not mean the developing nations can say that, no, it's the responsibility of the developed nations to do all the work or to manage climate change. It is a common responsibility and respective capability. So whatever capability a particular nation has or a particular state has, it is up to them, and it is to the fullest. They have to utilize their capabilities to the fullest so as to achieve the plan set by the Paris Agreement. Global cooperation along with united efforts are bound to make a difference. So as we all know, global cooperation is the need of the hour. We also refer to the world as a global village. So that is how we can actually mitigate the climate change and also bring in efforts to reduce climate change and have a better world to live in. Article 4 of the Paris Agreement deals with the NDCs, or nationally determined contributions, which every state has to prepare after every 5 years. So it is basically a state proposal that they make after every 5 years. It is reviewed and changed accordingly. So it is the Article 4 of the Paris Agreement, which is dealing with the NDCs. So here's just an image I wanted to show you all. See, everybody loves summer, and soon we'll get 8 whole months of it in Canada. So just be sure to pack SPF 200. Is this what we really want? I really wanted to, this picture really struck me, since it talks about a very issue of climate change in a very, very humorous and subtle manner. It talks about how Canada could also see 8 whole months of summer, and we all know Canada is a paradise of winters, and summers are hardly seen in Canada. But that is what could happen if we continuously ignore and very conveniently forget about the importance of climate change. So NDCs, as I've already spoken about, are something which parties can formulate individually or as a joint effort. The state or parties may change or adjust NDCs as per their wish. So even if in the 5-year NDC plan, if they wish to change it or amend or adjust, they can do so. That is how the Paris Agreement has given them the power to do so. The agreement does not provide for implementation of the NDCs, but it does give the substantive procedures to formulate NDCs. So while the Paris Agreement does not provide for implementation or for the execution of the NDCs, what it does give is the substantive procedure as to how to formulate NDCs and how to make sure they are effective and make sure that they're robust and in a way are there to mitigate the climate change. The NDCs must show progression made by the parties since they formed the last NDCs. So, for example, taking the case of India, if India formed an NDC in 2025, after every 5 years, that is in 2030, India would have to form another NDC, and that too a better one, and which has to show the progression made by India as a country in reducing the global house emission and also in mitigating climate change. Forest. So Paris Agreement not just talks about NDCs or land or anything. It is a very, very big, it is a huge agreement and brings in a lot of things like forests, NDCs. It also focuses on technology, finances, etc. Article 5 of the Paris Agreement deals with forests and other lands. As per the Paris Agreement, already existing framework for forests and other lands must be given proper anchorship. So while the Paris Agreement agrees that the already existing framework for forests is basically very nice, but what they want is the proper anchorship. The importance and the proper anchorship must be given so as to make sure that forests, which are already less in number and which are already being threatened, are not do not vanish away very soon. The Paris Agreement focuses on REDD+, RED+, or reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation in the developing nations. So the Paris Agreement, one of the major focuses of the Paris Agreement is on REDD+, which is reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. So what happens is in developing nations, majorly due to agriculture, land which is required, deforestation happens at a very, very alarming rate. Taking the case of India or China, where agriculture is still one of the major professions followed by many of its citizens, what happens is by bringing in more land for agriculture, deforestation is bound to be there, and forest degradation will also be there, since we'd be cutting forests for agriculture and we'd be cutting forests for making up buildings, infrastructure, etc. The Paris Agreement does not mention the term agriculture explicitly, but with reference to food production in Article 2, the onus on agriculture is laid down even more substantially. So the Paris Agreement does not majorly refer to the term agriculture or does not really talk about farmers as such, but what it does is in Article 2 of the Paris Agreement, it refers to food production. So food production, as we all know, is related to agriculture. It is agriculture in a sense. So the onus on agriculture, though not explicitly mentioned, is laid down even more substantially. So they really want, the Paris Agreement really wants that all the agriculturists take in combined efforts to reduce climate change, to reduce deforestation, and to understand the importance of Paris Agreement and to understand the importance of climate change. So how does a review or an assessment take place? The agreement lays down transparency in Article 13, which must be present to hold the states liable. So in Article 13 of the Paris Agreement, there is a proper mechanism which is set up and it says that the states must be transparent and must be held liable for any or for not meeting the requirements. Though the targets may be set up individually by the states, but it is extremely important for all the data to be transparent and not to be forced upon with. Third-party review with regard to the NDC achievements must be done after every 5 years. So as per the Paris Agreement, third-party review, let's take the case of India, since we are majorly focusing on how it impacts India. So taking the case of India, third-party review, since India is a developing nation, we'd be having a third party who would be coming in, not a developed nation, but a third party who would be coming in, reviewing the NDC achievements and also suggesting how India could do better in the next 5 years. So it is basically short-term plans which lead to long-term plans, and that is how the Paris Agreement also wants the nations to progress. The developed nations must aid the developing nations and also contribute finances if need arises. So it is very, very important and essential for the developed nations to aid the developing nations, since the developed nations have more resources and have more finances with them. So it is very, very important and extremely crucial for them to help the developing nations, and if the need arises, also help them with finances. The concept of loss and damage. So the concept of loss and damage was laid down in the Warsaw Agreement, which was also based on the UNFCCC recommendations. Areas of cooperation on loss and damage include early warning systems, emergency preparedness, and slow onset events. This is as per Article 8 of the Paris Agreement. So areas of cooperation on loss majorly include early warning systems and emergency preparedness. So this was also set up by the Warsaw Executive Committee. The question majorly was that how does Paris Agreement or how does UNFCCC give compensation to the vulnerable or to the states which are affected by it? So the answer to it was the Paris Agreement requested the Warsaw Executive Committee to form a clearinghouse for risk transfer and to minimize and avert displacements. So one of the important things laid down by Paris Agreement was the issue of displacements. So due to climate change and due to the vulnerability which states like, let's say, Maldives face due to the issue of the rise in the sea level, the importance on displacement is laid down by the Paris Agreement, and that is what the Paris Agreement does not want. It does not want people to be displaced from their very own nation. So that is a very, very sad reality which is actually starting to occur as we talk. In 2021 also, major parts of Maldives, as expected by 2035, would be underwater. So that is a very, very sad reality, and the world has to do something about it, because this is not just the case with Maldives. Today it's with Maldives, tomorrow it might be any other nation or any other state. Finance and technology. So Paris Agreement also lays down certain specifications related to finance and technology. No set of specific figures is provided with regards to finance, and the status remains a bit confusing. So what happens is the Paris Agreement, the states did not provide a concrete set of finances or concrete set of tabulations, but what it did was the COP, that is the Conference of Parties to Rectify the Same Mistake, set the existing mobilization goal to $100 billion per year, which could be changed later. So it was, as a preliminary measure, it was chosen to be $100 billion per year. But after 2025, that is the next meeting which would be held. The next meeting would be held in 2021, and the afterwards meeting would be held in 2025. So as per the 2025 meeting which would be held, the US $100 billion would be certainly increased as said by the Paris Agreement. Also technology. technology is one of the very important aspects. Since technology helps us in mitigating climate change, it helps us majorly. So the developed nations are required to develop and also maintain technology of the developing nations, and also, if need arises, provide them with the requisite technology that is required in dealing with any sort of climate change effects or etc. So the developed nations have a large role to play, and that is what all of us need to understand. Though the developed nations have a large role to play, but we cannot shift the onus completely to them. We as Indians, or we as a country with such a large and diverse population, have to make sure that we bring in certain steps which mitigate climate change and which are basically beneficial for our future generations, or otherwise our future generation might not be able to see trees or water or seas as we have seen. So I'll just be resharing my screen, and I'll be showing small videos.
What is the Paris
So is it visible and audible?
Yes. Go ahead.
Agreement? The Paris Agreement is a legally binding international treaty on climate change to limit global warming to well below 2, preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. This requires economic and social transformation to face the climate challenges now and moving into the future based on the best available science. The Paris Agreement works on a 5-year cycle of increasingly ambitious climate action. By 2020, countries communicate their plans known as nationally determined contributions. Countries communicate actions they will take to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions in order to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. Countries also communicate actions they will take to build resilience to adapt to the impacts of rising temperatures. This may include information on adaptation and finance flows. The Paris Agreement also provides a framework for financial, technical, and capacity building support to those countries who need it. Starting in 2024, countries report transparently on actions taken. Collective progress under the Paris Agreement will be assessed through a global stocktake. This will lead to recommendations for countries to set more ambitious plans in the next round.
So as we just saw in this particular video, also capacity building, which is very, very important. Capacity building, or building certain required infrastructure or certain required necessities which must be there so that climate change is mitigated and climate change is handled properly is very, very important. Capacity building can only happen if all the countries work together. In fact, climate change and reduction in greenhouse gases, reduction in pollution can only happen if there is global cooperation. So that is what even the Paris Agreement has harped on time and again. And also the need for capacity building must be realized so that all the nations, especially the underdeveloped nations, not even the developing nations, but the underdeveloped nations which do not have the requisite resources, must get them through the cooperation and through help and the aid given by the developing and the developed nations.
So are you done?
Yeah. So, So basically, that was my presentation. And if there are any questions or if there are any the doubts, if anybody has, I'm happy to answer. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
You did a great job.
Thank you, sir.
So anybody?
Now we have Professor Purushotham Reddy garu. You can request him, and other youngsters from Symbiosis. We also have Naveen from Khammam, Balaswamy garu, Democracy Crusader.
Sir, this is Professor Purushotham Reddy.
Namaste, Anna. Namaste.
Namaste, namaste. A good presentation by Singh.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
He has presented nicely and with a gist.
Yeah.
He presented, sir. It is very nice.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Oh, Shashikant, would you like to speak?
Sir, you're muted. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, your presentation is very good, Kartikya. It's very good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So, Subba Rao garu, please carry on.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kartikya. I hope you could inspire and motivate several youngsters to join this movement. This is most important. This is for you. And I have Balaswamy who is raising hand. Balaswamy garu, any question?
సార్
చెప్పండి.
ఈ పారిస్ అగ్రిమెంట్ అనేది చాలా గొప్ప నిర్ణయం సార్. ఒకటి ఇందాక కార్తిక్ సింగ్ గారు చాలా వివరంగా క్లుప్తంగా చెప్పారు. అయితే ఈ మన ఈ ఒప్పందం అమలు చేయాలని ఏమన్నా అగ్రిమెంట్ చేసుకున్నారు కదా, అందులో ఒప్పందంలో ఏమన్నా చేయకపోతే వాళ్ళ మీద ఏమన్నా అంటే ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ చేయకపోతే ఎలాంటి పెనాల్టీలు అలాంటివి ఏమన్నా?
అది మనం ఎస్
Yes, sir. Yes.
His question is there any legal binding on this agreement? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to translate and tell him in the local language. Balaswamy garu.
సార్, అయితే కార్బన్ డైఆక్సైడ్, ఈ మెథేన్ వంటివి వాయువులు విపరీతంగా విడుదల చేస్తున్నారు కదా సార్ ఇప్పుడు భూమి.
మొట్టమొదటి ప్రశ్నకు జవాబు చెప్తాను
సార్.
ఈ అగ్రిమెంట్ 196 దేశాలు ఏవైతే అగ్రిమెంట్ సంతకం చేశాయో,
అవును సార్,
ఇది ఒక లీగల్ అగ్రిమెంట్.
అవును.
ఓకే
సార్.
కనుక ఏమవుతుంది అని అంటే మనం ఒకటే ఎపిసోడ్ లో దీని గురించి అంతా కూడా మనం చర్చించుకోలేము. కనుక ఈ లీగల్ బైండింగ్ లో ఉన్న ఇంప్లికేషన్స్ ఏమిటి అన్నది కూడా అంటే మేమేం చూస్తున్నాము అని అంటే బ్రీఫ్ గా క్యాప్సూల్స్ పరంగా మేము పార్టిసిపెంట్స్ ముందుకు తీసుకొస్తున్నాము. దీన్ని బట్టి మీ ఫీడ్బ్యాక్ ఆధారంగా మేము ఇప్పటికీ ఒక 16 అనుకున్నాము. ఈ 16ని 32 ఎపిసోడ్స్ కూడా చేయగలుగుతాం. మీరు ఫీడ్బ్యాక్ ఇచ్చి మాకు మోటివేషన్ ఇస్తే. ఓకే. నెంబర్ 2, ఇప్పుడు ఏదైతే కార్తికేయ గారు చాలా బ్రీఫ్ గా ఇచ్చారో ఈ ఒప్పందం, ఎవరన్నా తెలుగులో కానీ హిందీలో కానీ దీన్ని ప్రజెంట్ చేస్తాము అని అంటే అది ట్రాన్స్లేట్ చేయడానికి హెల్ప్ చేస్తాము, ప్రజెంట్ చేయడానికి. ఎందుకని అంటే ఇది మన 100 కోట్ల ప్రజానీకానికి చేరాలి. So what I am saying, Kartikeya and to other participants is today Kartikeya initiated the dialogue on Paris. Many of us do not know what is Paris. Out of 100 or 120 crores, whatever it is, common man doesn't know what the government has signed. And I am sure even the policy makers, okay, whether they are in the ruling party or opposition party, how many of the political leaders know about this agreement? So my request to all the participants and other activists is, we are ready to help you and cooperate, extend help if you want to make the presentation in the regional languages. Our objective is to reach maximum wider section of the society in this country. It could be Telugu, it could be Marathi, it could be Hindi, it could be Gujarati. We would like to, and we look forward for the a voluntary initiative from the youngsters to come forward, and we will be able to help you on this. This is our ambition and mission under the COP26. Thank you so much.
సార్ మనము ఈ మధ్యన మన ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ లో చూసాం సార్, అంతర్వేది దగ్గర సముద్ర మట్టాలు ఆటోమేటిక్ గా పెరిగినాయి, కొన్ని జోన్లేమో 2 కిలోమీటర్లు వెనక్కి వెళ్ళిపోయినాయి. ఇది సేమ్ ఇదే సార్ కార్తికేయ గారు చెప్పినట్టు. అందుకోసమే దీనిపైన ఏమన్నా బైండింగ్ ఏమన్నా వాళ్ళ పైన చర్యలు తీసుకోవడానికి ఏమన్నా అవకాశం, అంటే మన ప్రభుత్వాలు ఇందులో ఉన్నాయి కనుక ఆ ప్రభుత్వం పైన చర్య తీసుకోవడానికి ఏమన్నా ఉంటుందా అని.
మొట్టమొదటిగా ఏం చేస్తున్నాము అని అంటే, మేము దీని తర్వాత ఇది ప్యారిస్ అగ్రిమెంట్ లోపల ఉన్న బైండింగ్స్ గురించి ఒక ఎపిసోడ్. ఓకే
సార్. ఓకే సార్.
రెండోది ఏమున్నది అని అంటే, మన దేశంలో
సార్
జాతీయ స్థాయిలో రాష్ట్ర స్థాయిలో మనం ఏం చేశాము అంటే, తెలంగాణ గవర్నమెంట్ రిపోర్టు అలాగే మిగతా రాష్ట్రాల రిపోర్టు కూడా మేము ప్రొక్యూర్ చేసుకున్నాము. ఆ రిపోర్ట్ల పైన కూడా మేము, ఎందుకనంటే మనము మన రాష్ట్రాన్ని ముందుగా అడగాలి కదా.
అవును సార్.
ఇప్పుడు కార్తికేయ గారు ఏం చెప్పారు, గ్లోబల్ లెవెల్లో దేశాల మధ్య కోఆపరేషన్ ఉండాలి అన్నారు. మరి విత్ ఇన్ ది కంట్రీ రాష్ట్రాల మధ్య కోఆపరేషన్ ఉండాలి కదా.
కంపల్సరీ సార్, ఉండాల్సింది.
వాటిని మేము ఒక్కొక్క ఎపిసోడ్ కింద ముందుకు రాబోయే 3-4 రోజుల్లో తెలంగాణ గవర్నమెంట్ పబ్లిష్ చేసిన యాక్షన్ ప్లాన్ రిపోర్ట్ పైన కూడా చర్చిస్తాం. ఆంధ్ర గవర్నమెంట్ తన రిపోర్ట్ సబ్మిట్ చేయలేదని మాకు అనిపిస్తుంది, ఇంకా మేము వెరిఫై చేస్తాం. సో మిస్టర్ కార్తికేయ, వాట్ ఐ జస్ట్ conveyed him is he wants to know, because the adjoining state, the sea, has shown the weird behavior. It moved forward and went back 3 kilometers, the sea showed. Okay. So these are the issues, people should know why it is happening. The second thing is, what is the progress like? And we are planning for the progress. We are also bringing out deliberations on states reports.
Right.
And state reports, it could be Northeast, it could be Gujarat, it could be Maharashtra. And we are requesting the youngsters to come forward and participate in this deliberation. We can share the copy of those reports. Okay?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Definitely. Okay. And we look forward, support and cooperation from youngsters like this. And I have one more request from Dr. Singh-Presenter. Dr. Singh-Presenter Reddy garu?
Yeah. The first part of the question, anyhow, you have already answered, because if you can share the PPT, we will see to that it gets done in other languages too. The other aspect is how well India or the states have been complying since the Paris Agreement, because you are pursuing your law, and this is related to law. Did really Prime Minister Modi, after the Paris Agreement, did they put any of those NDCs or whatever it is into action? At least do we have any of those on the paper at least? Could they bring it in the parliament at least?
Yes, so sir, basically the NDCs have been formulated by the Indian government, and also Prime Minister Modi, even in the recently conducted Quad meeting last year also, he did talk about climate change, and he did also refer to the Paris Agreement. And though the NDCs haven't been in execution, as we can also see, rivers have been dying up and all major actions haven't been taken for climate change, but the NDCs have been formulated. But the sad reality is they aren't being executed, and the ambitious goals, as was talked about the Paris Agreement, haven't been really set. The goals which have been set by the Indian government, or which are still in pipeline, are very, very base level, and they're not ambitious. Whereas the Paris Agreement requires the goals, the climate change goals and the mitigation plans to be extremely ambitious, so that even if 40% of that is achieved, it would be a great step in achieving proper climate mitigation.
Thank you, Karthik. Adding to Karthik's statement, you see, Government of India did take proactive initiatives as far as the it declared, even in the Paris Agreement and all, constituted an apex committee on this. But we need to look into what kind of a measurable benchmarks they have established. You see, Paris Agreement focuses on establishing measurable benchmarks, and which should be reviewed once in 5 years by a third party. So we are trying to get all the information both at the national level and the state levels on this established benchmarks. You see, what is happening, the reports in the media and other things, that India is fulfilling 2 out of the 3, objectives of the Paris. And we cannot give, it's like a, average GDP and all other things. The national averages cannot be taken for granted. We need to look into state level as well as sector level. How much industry has cut down its emissions? How much transport has been cut down? So these are the issues we are trying, and we are coming out with a series of episodes. I request Professor Purushotham Reddy to throw more light on this aspect.
Yeah, thank you, Subba Rao Garu. At the outset, I wish to compliment our young friend, Kartikya. Kartikya, you did a great job. At your age, even though we were all there and very active among students' union and all that during our time, we did not have this kind of a courage to present on a topic, and you did a great job. So my first compliment to you, and I know you are going to have a glorious innings in the days to come. Now, coming to the topic, the dilemma, whenever we are talking about Paris Agreement or even earlier Kyoto Protocol, because I've been following the debate right from Raquel Carson to contemporary times, I realize that the nations of the world are not honest. And particularly in the context of India, because India is my country, we are all wonderful, we love our country, we want our country's name to be very high in the comity of nations, but within the country, because we are a democracy, we should discuss about everything, because democracy basically presupposes participation. Democracy means discussion and dialogue. So when taking this particular picture into consideration, I wish to point out that India has to undergo a major paradigm shift if the promises that India made at Paris have to be realized. The nationally determined contributions. Our Prime Minister made an excellent presentation in Paris. In fact, he mentioned very clearly that India's commitment to reduce its commitments by 30%, 33 to begin with, and then he also pledged that this may go up to 35. Now that was a very good beginning, and the whole world appreciated India for voluntarily coming forward in the INDCs. Now the question is, now this reduction is compared to 2005 levels. That is, whatever was the load of India's emissions in 2005, from that level it has to be reduced to by 35%. Now the question is, where is the action that is being followed? It is not commensurate to the promises we made at Paris. The only thing that the government of India, there are only two areas where they are focusing. One is renewable energy, and that too solar energy. So that's a big thing we appreciate. But then that alone is not going to reduce. So that point I request all our friends to note. Second, they are talking about increasing the forest cover. I would appreciate that. But at the ground level, instead of increasing the forest cover, they are actually reducing it, because just even 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and last year also, there have been endeavors and efforts by the central government to open up the forests for indiscriminate mining, particularly coal mines. So that is, the government of India is opening up new mines for coal, and they are permitting thermal power stations. And all this is happening at a time when the whole world is saying no to fossil fuels. That is, we have to bypass the fossil fuel economy, and the whole world has made a commitment, but we in India, we are still making efforts. We still want to pollute the world, and we are going in for thermal power. And this, every citizen in this country has to note, and they need to raise their voice. The only solution for all this is, India is a major technological giant. The number of universities, the number of scientists India has, everybody accepts. So the focus should be on immediately throwing up missions in order to develop hydrogen, renewable cycle, and also to reduce our carbon footprint. So for all this to happen, the entire planning process of within this country, it has to undergo a major shift, a shift in favor of environment and people and sustainability. But we have all kinds of political parties at the state level. And these political parties, particularly at the state level, they have no respect to the constitution nor to democracy. And most often instead of India presenting as a union of states and, the entire political system talking about cooperative federalism, we find that the states are invariably at loggerhead with the center for reasons best known to their political party's ideology. So, as a result, the country, that is the state of India, I'm talking about India, it is not speaking in one voice. There are too many tongues, too many voices that are being heard, and they are mutually contradictory. And the picture that is right now emerging in this country, the language political parties speak is not environment friendly. One last point, Kartikya, the Indian political parties, they are not committed to climate change. They are not committed to Paris Accord. None of these Indian political parties have mentioned all this in their manifestos. And also, you must have noticed that none of the Indian political parties ever talk about environmental issues or, the entire debate right from 1960 to contemporary today. So there is a huge promise, what the Prime Minister's promise at an international conference, whether it was Mrs. Gandhi at Stockholm, B.V. Rao at Rio, or Mr. Modi in Paris. Believe me, there is a yawning gap between what they promise and their actual performances. COP26 is about to start next month, ending October 31st. Actually, we have been demanding a special session of Parliament on climate change, because the nation needs to know what exactly is happening. In fact, whatever the government speaks at COP26, that entire document should be publicly discussed in India. People's views, for example, a young budding lawyer like you have spoken so nicely. In fact, you have voiced the concerns of the people of India. Like this, let there be discussion in every law college, every university, everywhere, and right from the villages to the municipalities, to the states and to the center. Why not we have a special session of Parliament sometime, maybe first week of October, so that the government views are presented, opposition. Let there be all-party meeting. Let the government convene concerned citizens, and let there be openness. Actually, environmentalism, whenever we are talking, it presupposes all these things. Transparency, accountability, we have right to information, but the whole country is kept in dark. So thanks to Symbiosis and your bright students, you and your friends, a debate has started, and I wish to compliment my friend Subba Rao ji. Let this debate pick up. There are many issues. Right now, my friend Balaswamy is here. He has spoken about the sea level rise. బాలస్వామి గారు మీరేం చెప్పినారు, ఒక దగ్గర సముద్రం ఇట్లా కోస్ట్లోకి అంటే దాని తీర ప్రాంతంలోకి చొచ్చుకొని వచ్చింది, మరో దగ్గర సముద్రం లోపలికి వెళ్ళిపోయింది. అవి ఎన్నో సైంటిఫిక్ రీజన్స్ ఉంటాయి దానికి. లోకల్ మనకు తెలియని అంటే ఓషన్ బెడ్ల ఆ ప్రాంతంలో ఏదన్నా మినీ చిన్న చిన్న ఎర్త్క్వేక్స్ వచ్చిన కదలికలు ఉన్నా అలాంటిది జరగవచ్చు, లేక ఇంకేదన్నా రీజన్ ఉండొచ్చు. కానీ అటువంటి ఇన్సిడెంట్ అయితే మరి మన సైంటిఫిక్ కమ్యూనిటీ ఏం చేస్తుంది? దే షుడ్ అనలైజ్ అండ్ టెల్ ద కంట్రీ వాట్ ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ ఈస్ హ్యాపెనింగ్, వై డిడ్ ఇట్ హ్యాపెన్. సో Kartikya, it's a good opportunity what we are all right now working on. We are trying to raise the public conscience and public knowledge. For example, everything in this country is going wrong. For example, if you take the Himalayas, you are there in Jammu, so you are a child of the Himalayas, right?
Yes.
Now, what's happening there, you are a witness. And you know how many tragedies have occurred, and yet are we learning any lessons? How many irrigation projects are being, you know, the kind of tunnels and the guard roads in the Himalayas? I don't know, we the people, and again, we are not the only people who are destroying the Himalayas. Our distinguished neighbors like Pakistan, China, Nepal, and every other country, they are all eating into that wonderful ecosystem, the very unique ecosystem, which actually should be declared by the UN as the common property, and the United Nations Trusteeship Council should come forward and take care of it. No individual country can take care of Himalayas because it's not in one country. Nearly more than 10 countries are connected, and its significance is for the entire planet Earth. There's so much of biodiversity, it's so very important for climate management and so on. So UN is doing a great job, but it is not adequate. Similarly, Amazon also, most of these common spaces or the common properties of the people in the entire world, they should be directly taken care of. The North Pole, South Pole, all the oceans, the Amazon. Amazon again is not in one single country. So, and as law students, Symbiosis, you should be continuously working on these things, because every international agreement, you know very well that there are legal provisions in the Constitution itself that India, the moment India's Prime Minister affixes his signature or her signature, that means India is bound. So what I would request you as a young student of law, I request you to please verify those provisions. They are there, I know, but you take it as a homework and you identify those provisions, those articles which make it mandatory for the government of India. You know, it has no choice. Once it fixes its signature, it can't go back. So, and moreover, the people throughout the world and in India also, we all are being affected. We have our great farm leader, Somashekar Rao Garu, and you know, every farmer in the entire world is worried because they can't, now nothing can be predicted. Climate change, erratic rainfalls, rising temperatures, increasing floods and droughts. How are the farmers going to cultivate their lands? Their right to livelihood is affected. Their right to life, consequently, their right to life. So, thank you, Subhana. The purpose was to ignite the young minds. Already, fortunately for Symbiosis, they are already ignited.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Purushotham Reddy. The two things which came out very clearly is that there is a need to review the actions taken by government during these 5 years, and also the kind of supportive initiatives by the respective states towards this. Since it's a commitment by the nation, since it is signed by the Prime Minister, we are all bound, irrespective of the political parties and ideologies. It's a global issue. And to what extent the state governments have initiated this to strengthen and support the national spirit and the commitment and the honor towards upkeeping the national commitment. That is most important. Does each state establish measurable benchmarks in each sector? You see, Paris Agreement talks on three major objectives. But the thing is, temperatures control comes under different sectors. How the automobile sector is doing, how the processing sector is doing, how emissions, you see, your livestock emissions, agriculture emissions, polluted lake emissions. I have not come across any report on what kind of emissions we get from the polluted lake, though everybody feels a foul smell. So we need to look two things. What I felt is, as a follow-up of this, number one, we are all referring to the articles, 2, 5, 6 of Paris. Okay? And let us see what are these articles also. Okay? In what way the government, the member countries are buying. And the second thing is, what are the, benchmarks and the actions initiated by government of India? And let us look into it. To what extent it reached to the state governments. Okay? Let us look into this. And the most important thing which happened during the Earth Summit. I was questioned I was addressing the students of New York University. So they asked me, Bush is not going to participate in the President of America in the Earth Summit. This is every time in the global meetings, it's a big drama. I said, I am not interested whether President of America participates or not. It is the citizens of America to make him to participate. And now similarly, it is the citizens of India to make this agreement, honored by everybody. And we should also strengthen and support the system to implement it. We are not questioning, we are not arguing, we are not doing anything. We have committed somewhere, let us do this. This is also part of the national spirit and patriotism, what I feel. Patriotism is not just shouting and running in the streets, okay? So we need to look into it. And these are the issues. The most important thing, again, this, in this event, what happened is, Trump said, we are withdrawing from the COP. Yes, he withdrew. And when the new president came, he said, we are joining. These tamashas will happen. You cannot depend on the so-called big brothers. It's time for India to show its leadership and give a handhold support. Hundreds of, least developed, underdeveloped, developing countries. We should become a role model. What is happening? We are not able to bring a clear consensus among the states in this country. It's very pathetic. Let us look into it, these aspects, in our next episode. That what are these articles, and second thing, what are the initiatives taken by the government of India? How many state reports have been published? Okay, and we can start looking into review of each state report. Does it fall within the framework of the committed NDCs? Okay, so that is my proposal, and I'm also requesting others like Balaswamy and others, sir, please come forward. We can help you in translating it. Let us reach out to the 3 crores of Telangana people in vernacular language. And to young Shashikant Reddy, my suggestion is, sir, all the global conventions are nothing but negotiations. Kartikya, you brought out on finance technology. Yes?
Yes, sir.
So who gives the finance and who transfers the technologies? Do we need such kind of a technology? Who validates all these things? Okay? It's nothing but negotiations, mediations. Okay? This is largely, falls under law. Also, to those, youngsters who are aspiring to become diplomats, administrators, climate change is part of the syllabus for the civil services, UPSC exam. So you read it because you want to get through it. Okay? Move out of that mindset. Become a diplomat. Okay? So it is the diplomacy, negotiations, art of negotiation. This is. What is that you negotiate before the judge? Guilty or not guilty? That's it. So same thing in the climate change. So we are trying to impress the law students particularly on this because they are much closer to the negotiations rather than others. And the second batch of youngsters are youngsters who are aspiring to write civil services, these two. And those who are interested to work in diplomacy with the international NGOs, that is also a great learning process for this. Okay, so thank you so much, and please help us to reach out to many youngsters, motivate them, influence them. Shashikant Reddy garu, anything you would like to add? One thing before that, Kartikya, 1 second, sir. Kartikya.
Yes, sir.
Please make me the host again.
Right, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And Shashikant Reddy, please.
So I came into this environment, everything, sir, recently, because from last 6 months I'm working on this environment thing. So I came across all the flaws in the governance, the state governance of the Indian government, like the Environment Acts or any pollution acts. Like these government people, they're not implementing the acts, whatever they make it on the paper or they make it on any constitution rules. So from the last 7 months, I came to know there are severe flaws in the governance of the state, I guess, the state governments, I guess.
Yeah, that is one thing, the whole thing is if government is not implementing, it also becomes our responsibility to sensitize and bring awareness among the citizens.
Yes, sir. And one more thing. There is yes, there is one more thing. Like any villager or any citizen, like who is living in a polluted area or anything, these people don't know what's happening to their health or any agriculture. What loss can be happen in the future or present. That is the main thing. The villagers who, you can say, like who is not into anything, they may be illiterate or below poverty line. I don't think that nobody educate these people like what's happened with the pollution or what happens with the, we can say mining. One of the main thing is mining. These people don't know what happens with right now I'm seeing the people suffering with lung infections due to heavy pollution in some areas. So I think that people should know what's happened with all the pollution, what's happening with dust pollution or any water pollution. So this is the main concern, sir. I have seen from last 7 months, this is the main concern, that the people don't know what happens with the pollution.
Yes, that is true. You see, one thing is the most hidden danger is for the coming generations, the babies in the womb.
Yes.
Nalgonda, everybody thought that fluorosis will not affect the newborn babies because it's well protected within the mother's womb. But in 1994, it was found that newly born babies in Marigoda, they born with distorted legs and hands affected with fluorosis.
Yes.
Okay, so pollution is not only, it doesn't manifest immediately, and it manifests in the coming generations.
Yes.
So people have to understand this aspect of it, most important. And mining sector is the major enemy, unscientific mining, I'd say, is the major enemy which contributes to the aerosols and climate change.
Yes.
Please look into this, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Any other person? Mana Somshekar Rao garu from agriculture sector.
అందరికి నమస్కారం అండి. చాలా కార్తికేయ గారు, సుబ్బారావు గారు, పురుషోత్తమ రెడ్డి గారు చాలా మంచి సమాచారం అందించారు. ధన్యవాదాలు. మీరు చెప్పినట్లు ఈ మైనింగ్ సెక్టార్లో చాలా పొల్యూషన్ జరగటం వల్ల షట్టర్ స్మెల్ బాగా వస్తూ ఉంది. ఇది కూడా కంపెనీస్ శనివారం రాత్రి పూట, ఆదివారం అట్లా వాటిని విడుదల చేస్తున్నారు. ఈ విషయాల్లో కూడా మనం దృష్టి సారించాలని నేను భావిస్తున్నా. మీరు చెప్పినట్లు లోకల్ లాంగ్వేజెస్ లో కూడా మరి ఈ కాలుష్యం గురించి కూడా సమాచారం రావాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంది.
సుపర్ణ, మన డాక్టర్ ప్రభాకర్ రెడ్డి, పాలసీ ఎక్స్పర్ట్ ఫ్రమ్ యునెస్కో. He is there.
Oh.
He has raised his hand.
Oh, I was Prabhakar Reddy garu. Prabhakar Reddy garu?
PC announces. Okay.
PC ante నేను బాల్సా. Prabhakar Reddy garu?
Yeah, please. మీరు అన్మ్యూట్ చేసుకుంటున్నా.
Prabhakar Reddy garu, please unmute your mic.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. And it was an interesting presentation by Kartikya Singh. Thank you, Mr. Singh. It was very thought-provoking. I have a couple of things to say. One is a statement, other one is a question to you. Taking a clue from Professor Purushotham Reddy sir's words, I would like to add something. I have done a small study 2 years back on climate change in Telangana, wherein I looked at social vulnerability of farming communities in Telangana who have been adversely affected because of climate change. It has been reported in my paper submitted to World Bank. It was on climate change and multilateralism. And second point is that I did some scanning of literature in the recent past and trying to update myself. And I looked at the statement given by Mr. Alok Sharma, the minister in charge of COP26, who clearly said that the kind of capitalism, the kind of economic system that we have is obstructing the implementation of Paris Agreement. And despite the concerted efforts of the government, India's state of preparedness is not really up to the mark. It needs to be enhanced. This is my impression, and I would like to have your reflection. And state of preparedness to implement the Paris Agreement clearly needs to be enhanced. This is largely due to several gaps in policies, institutions, more importantly, the governance framework that we have that require integration of climate and environmental concerns into developmental processes. Because there are several developmental deficits which need to be overcome through a resource efficient pathway, among others. As you've been rightly saying that developed countries need to support financially the developing countries, which is not happening. We have seen Addis Ababa conference, we have seen other initiatives, and there are many pronouncements which have been made, but still the developing countries are not at all receiving any kind of support from the developed countries. This is one impression I have, whether you would agree with me or not. This is one statement. Second one is important question. In the context of COP26, we have been talking about zero net carbon. Do you think it is possible in the case of India? And secondly, what should be done to achieve this zero net carbon, given the kind of economic system that we have in India? So these are the two things.
Yeah, I respond to this question. Kartikya is a very youngster who stepped into this climate change with the law perspective, basically.
Right.
So zero emissions, zero discharges. So we have not achieved zero discharges even to this date. Though we are talking about the zero discharges last 2022, more than that, right? And the thing is, you see, it calls for a lot of material science studies. As a scientist, I can tell you. And zero emissions, technologies, they are claiming that you can trap back the carbon emissions and, create several things and all. But it's a long way. So one plus point with the Paris Agreement is it never said, you come out with a zero or a zero. Okay? Achieve 1.5 in 1 day or 1 year. It gave enough cushioning to every country that what is the practicable, achievable in time and space. So it is important for every country to establish a measurable indicator. First thing is measurable benchmark. You see, what is the benchmark I establish? Even if I say industrial, industries are diversified. Each sector needs a measurable benchmark, like pharmaceutical. Even among the pharmaceuticals, we have medium and large pharmaceuticals. Okay? But I'm yet to look, trying to collect information on, do we have any set measurable benchmarks for sector-wise industry? Leather industry, automobile industry. So these are the major issues that, it needs. It's not possible, I can tell you, that, bring out a zero emission in 1 day. It calls for a lot of convergence. It calls for convergence and cooperation among the ministries, departments, and the scientific bodies to establish such measurable benchmarks. So, thank you so much.
I would like to add one point, sir, in regards to your this thing, automobile. On one side, we say we will use electrical motors so that we save this planet. But at the same time, they are dumping all the bodies of such huge automobile industry. Don't you think the same bodies can be utilized, or as has been being done in US and other countries, they change the engine? Why the hell you need to discard all that? Even that forms another pollution. And not only that, this is again catering to the technology transfers. In the name of technology transfers, they are going to make rich more richer and Unfortunately, the middle classes, every 7 years, I can't afford to buy. I had to struggle to pay for my car. I'm just out of it, and I'm not in a position to buy a house now at this age. And 7 years, what is the per capita income and how good it is for the environment to dump all those bodies? I don't understand the frame of the car. Why can't you fit the same machine in that? Or else, the pollutant here is the diesel or petrol engines. You could have changed that, or else you could have got an electric machine, into that, the same body. Don't you think we could have preserved so much? Is it really catering to the people of the country or helping the others to become more rich in the name of saving environment?
You are correct, Dr. Singh-Presenter Garu. This was debated in several international forums. Yes. You see, the whole problem is we do not read, we do not do studies on ground realities of our country and the states. It happened when we introduced the hazardous biomedical waste management. Okay, Indian government just adopted the American norms. Where in American hospitals even the bed sheets are removed. And it goes to the incineration. But India, it never happens. Okay, people have, though in the international norms and guidelines, there's a provision given that you have to take these guidelines and develop the mechanisms to suit your ground realities. But nobody bothers because no administrator, no diplomat, no politician wants to read and understand.
But even in US they change the engines, sir. In US they change the engines only. They don't dump the body and again become a pollutant in that form.
2000 International Sustainability Industries Conference at Taipei, Mitsubishi presented a paper that how their vehicle looks in 2050 without changing the body. It's only replacement of the engines.
That's what.
Yeah, one of the delegates from Pakistan said, "I would have saved so much money."
That's what.
The whole problem. Yeah, the whole problem is, such kind of information is not reaching to the common man. And common man, chalo bhai apna sardar kyo. When the industry also tells that.
No, they are masterminding, sir. They are masterminding through this media. See, we are 130 crore population in less geographically configured land. When you compare to 30 crores in such a vast area. So, even that has to be taken into consideration. You just can't go on dumping everything just like that. Where is the space? And why should you do it? And why should you do it?
Well, one thing is, we need to create platforms for deliberation. For why planners are not debating on this? Why engineers and CSIR labs are not debating on this? Because they do not want to, and ultimately the ball comes to us. Let us do some deliberations on it. Thank you, sir. And I see Pooja Chaudhary. Pooja Chaudhary, are you there? Pooja Chaudhary.
I'm there. Yeah,
please.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm from Jammu again. So I was just listening to, I found it very interesting because I had no clue absolutely about Paris Agreement and, living in a city like J&K, you tend to ask so many questions many a time. So this was one of the, I just thought I'd join this and see what it is all about. So, but it was quite an eye-opener for me overall. So, of course, many thanks to all of you. The deliberations, what you all have been having. So it really, it gave us, it's like, food for thought, like what we all can do. Of course, I'm not very aware about we are aware about is the basic pollution and, and how badly Tavi River and Chenab and, these local, they are affected. But, this kind of impact, we just keep hearing in news and, the climate change and stuff like that. So, of course, this is a huge issue, which I understand. So many thanks to all of you for, it's been an eye-opener completely for me as a person. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Pooja Chaudhary. Please share your WhatsApp number. So, because we have some 20 episodes coming. So, whenever you feel convenient, you can join us.
Absolutely. I shall do that. So, many thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Mallikarjun Reddy garu, are you there?
తెలుగు భాషా దినోత్సవం శుభాకాంక్షలు వారి ఇప్పుడు పర్యావరణంపై చాలా బ్రహ్మాండంగా మాట్లాడవచ్చు సార్. బాగా ఆశకవిత్వం వారు బాగా చెప్తారు సార్, నిజంగా రియలీ.
యాక్చువల్గా మనం కవుల మీటింగ్ ఒకటి పెడదాం క్లైమేట్ చేంజ్.
స్పోర్ట్స్ కూడా ఉన్నది సార్ మీ దాంట్లో. ఇంకా మనము స్పోర్ట్స్ చాలామంది మీరు చెప్పిన నేను అది లీక్ చేస్తే రోజు అడుగుతాడు ఒకటి పిల్లాడు, మెసేజ్ పెడుతున్నాడు.
మల్లికార్జున రెడ్డి గారు ఓకే, మధుసూదన్ రెడ్డి గారు, and we have Venkatesh also. Venkatesh, anything you would like to share?
Venkatesh is a great organizer.
I know that.
Venkatesh, చెప్పను.
సార్ నమస్కారం సార్, అందరికీ నమస్కారం సార్. అది నేను మాట్లాడేది వింటున్నా సార్, అదే సబ్జెక్టు పెంచుకోవడానికి కోసం అని కేర్ఫుల్లీ వింటున్నా సార్.
Thank you so much and please join us. Okay?
Yes, thank you sir.
So, Kartikya, are you there?
Yes sir, yes.
Kartikya, please, in the chat box, I have not seen the Pooja Chaudhary's number. In case if you know her, please take the number so that we can share our other events information. Okay?
Right, sir. I'll do that.
Thank you so much. And I thank all the participants and our today's the young voice to climate change, Kartikya Singh. A special applaud to Kartikya.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
And next episode we'll come out with possibly something on Articles of Paris Agreement and more precisely on the initiatives of the Indian government and the reports published by the state governments. Thank you so much. We look forward. Thank you, Dr. Singh-Presenter Reddy garu.
Thank you.
Reddy garu, Pooja Chaudhary, Venkatesh, Mallikarjun Reddy, Mallikarjun, and Somshekhar Rao garu, Balaswastra. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night, sir.
Thank you so much sir. Thank you.
Thank you.